Alright everyone, so I am here hanging out with my Mustangs. I know I haven't made any videos about them yet, so I'm gonna just do a little bit of a devotion here with my Mustangs. Let me introduce you to them first. So that there is Shyla, and Shyla is about to be 7, coming up this spring. And then this one right here, this is Dreamer, and she is gonna be 5 in April, so they're relatively, young for the horses that we have here at the ranch. But yeah, so a little bit of a backstory on how I ended up with these guys. In order to, understand the full story, we have to go way back. So basically, when I was really little, I wanted a horse. So ever since I can remember, I have wanted a horse. I, watched, all the horsey cartoons. I played with all the horsey toys. I read all the horse books. For years and years and years and years and years, all I wanted was a horse. But obviously, you can't have a horse when you're 4 years old and you live in the suburbs and your parents aren't big animal people. So I had to wait and be patient for the right time that God had assigned me to be able to own a horse. Hi, baby girl. You got some food all over your face. So I didn't end up getting a horse until I was 18, and her name was Amaris. She was an old Peruvian Paso that was given to me by a friend of mine. Complete opposite of a horse that I wanted. I wanted a tall, gray, quarter horse gelding that was young, and she was a dark bay, 18-year-old mare with a gentle, slow personality, but I completely fell in love with Amaris, and she was definitely my heart horse for sure. So shortly after I got her, later that year, I was able to purchase Duchess, and that's a whole nother story. That's for another video. But I was able to purchase Duchess, and so I had 2 horses, and really just, kind of just dove in after that. I've had several horses since getting my first 2. Unfortunately, Amaris did pass away in August of 2001 due to complications from DSLD. But that whole story is another video. Just kind of going through the highlights. But if it wasn't for my first horse, Amaris, I would definitely not be the horseman I am today. So back to the Mustangs. In, I believe, 2011, I watched a documentary on the Mustang Makeover, which is a event where trainers from all over the country get 100 days with wild horses to train them, and then they compete. Ooh, something scary over there. They compete in a competition, and then after the competition is over, the horses that were trained by these trainers are offered to the public. So that documentary was definitely an inspiration, and it sparked such a desire in my heart to, just own one of these horses. Just a living piece of the West, a living piece of American history as they're known. So that desire was there. And then in 2012, I was able to go for my birthday and see the youth competition of the Mustang makeover, and I was hooked. I loved it so much. The horses were beautiful. The kids were having so much fun with the horses. It was creative and, just opened up this whole new world that I had never seen before. And from that moment on, I had to have one. I had to have a Mustang. I never, that dream never went away. And dreams have been, a big part of my life. I've always been a big dreamer, been a big goal setter, always had something ahead to work towards. And being a big dreamer and having these goals, we see that as a positive thing, but, it does stuff to you. It's definitely hard when you have 6 siblings, you live in the suburbs, you don't have any land, but, through the grace of God, I was able to find Flying G, able to take lessons, eventually able to have my horses out here, but it was a lot of waiting, a lot of struggle, a lot of, asking God, like, why did you give me this dream if I have to wait so stinking long? Is this really your plan? Like, why am I so passionate about this? Horses are just, my fire. Like, I get so excited about horses, specifically Mustangs. I love watching Mustangs. I've seen so many documentaries about Mustangs, and I just, was so dedicated to Mustangs specifically. I like quarter horses and, paint horses and stuff like that, but I always loved Mustangs. My senior year, I wrote a, long research paper on the history of Mustangs. So very, very dedicated to the breed. But once again, we didn't have any land, didn't have a whole lot of money. I have 6 siblings, so spending money on horses was never in the cards. But through lots of prayer, lots of tears, lots of learning experiences, God just putting different people in my life at just the right time, I was able to, learn more, talk to people who had Mustangs. I was able to get involved in more in learning about horses and meeting some really awesome horsemen who have owned Mustangs before. But there was so many times when I thought it was never going to happen. Losing my first horse in 2021 was very, very difficult for me. It was heartbreaking, full of asking God of, well, why would you give me this and only let me have her for 2.5 years before she passed away? Like, why would you give me this amazing thing if you were just going to take it away? And in that moment, God spoke to me so clearly, and he said, I wanted you to learn something from that horse that you've already learned, so you don't need her anymore. But I'm preparing something bigger ahead of you, something that you haven't even imagined yet. Then, the next month, I met my now husband, which he is amazing. And a year after that, I was able to adopt these two wonderful horses. So Shyla and Dreamer. Let's go back to Dreamer here, and they're just snacking. But having these big dreams and these big passions, it's always been clear that God has been the one putting those in my heart, because, you know, I was not a kid that was, you know, around horses when I was little. My grandpa had one horse that, you know, I fed maybe once when I was really little, but the only way to explain it, you know, because my parents aren't into horses, my grandparents aren't into horses, my great-grandparents aren't into horses, and it's really, you know, I should not be into horses, because I, you know, wasn't around them when I was little. Didn't start riding until I was 9, but God just put this passion and this desire in my heart for horses, and just use them to teach me so much about Him. Using the beauty of horses to teach me how much He loves me, how much He loves people. Able to allow me to use horses to teach other people how good God is. And that's, you know, that's what the purpose of this video is to just show you that, you know, no matter what your dreams are, no matter what your desires are, if God has put something in your heart, if He has put a fire in your veins for something specific, don't let anybody discourage you. You know, it might take, years and years. It might take 20 years before you even see anything come up from that. But I went to the Mustang makeover, you know, almost every single year for 12 years before I ended up with these guys. You know, I waited 18 years before getting my first horse, but God was preparing me and slowly putting those puzzle pieces in place. And in those times where I just felt so discouraged, you know, thinking like, maybe this isn't God's plan after all, maybe, you know, I'm just making this all up, I could, you know, find a different job, you know, find something else to do, but, you know, nothing else fit, nothing else lit me on fire, nothing else, you know, was my passion besides horses. And, you know, God has just used horses in some amazing ways in my life and in the lives of the kids that I work with. Yeah, just, if God has given you something, if He has spoken to your heart and told you or promised you something, He's not gonna just drop it and change His mind. You know, God is a God who keeps His promises. All His promises are yes and amen. And in those times of discouragement, you know, I hung on a specific verse, that's my favorite verse in the whole Bible, where it says in Philippians 1:6, and he says that He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And if something you have is not complete, that God has started, He's not done with it. He's going to continue using you. He's going to continue working with you, working in you, until it is complete. So yeah, whatever, you know, follow your dreams is kind of like a very vague statement, and it looks different for everyone. Don't lose sight of the promises of God and the things that God has placed in your heart. It might take 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 years to see that fulfillment, to see that completion, but, you know, God's not done yet. If you have breath in your lungs, you know, God's not done. In another verse, you know, even if you're not working in a place that's your dream, if you're not doing the thing that you dream of doing, whatever you're doing, whatever work you're doing, do it with all your heart, like you're working for the Lord and not for human masters. And that is found in Colossians 3:23. So whatever you're doing, work at it with your whole heart, like you're working for the Lord and not for people. Because that's what we're doing. We're here serving an amazing God. We're here serving a great God. And, God has put these dreams and passions in your heart for a purpose and for a reason. And He's going to use them to bring Him glory. He's also going to use them to serve His people. So just keep on dreaming, guys. No matter how crazy, no matter how wild they seem, if the pieces don't seem to fit, just trust in God. I know you hear that all the time, just trust in God, but it's true, and He's not finished yet. So, He was able to bring these horses into my life, and there were so many times, even right before I got them, that it didn't seem like I was gonna get them, like things came up that, financially, that I wasn't going to be able to get them. And I was like, okay, God, if you have the fencing, if I can get the fencing, then I know that this is right. And so there was a sale at Tractor Supply on the panels I needed. And then it was like, okay, God, if I can't find a trailer, then I know that this is what you want. And as crazy as it sounds, getting 2 Mustangs, being part of God's plan, that sounds kind of ridiculous and far-fetched. But everything fell into place so perfectly that I cannot deny that it was God's plan. Because I should not be here today. I should not be around horses. I should not have Mustangs. But God has opened so many doors. He has allowed things to fall into place, and I am so extremely blessed. And I'm just so thankful for everything that God has put in my life. So be patient in the waiting. Be faithful in the waiting. Whatever you're doing in that waiting time, do it with all your heart. Because whatever God has given you, whatever God has placed in your hands, it's for a reason. And if you're not at your dream yet, just keep pushing and keep trusting in God. So I hope that was an encouragement to you guys. That's a little bit of my story. So if you have any questions, let me know. But just remember, God's not finished yet. Bye.